Assalamualaikum and good morning. My name is NURFITRIAH binti AHMAD MUNIR and my matrix number is 23DBT 20F1036 and my group member is HASHWINI and AMIR ASHRAF. We are from group 4 and our topic is human clinical trials and the title of journal is the ethical implications of clinical trials in low and middle income countries.
Good day. My name is HASHWINI BALASUBRAMANIAM. What is the ethical issue? When a decision or scenario or activity conflicts with a society's moral standards, ethical issues arise. Individuals and business alike may be entangled in these conflicts, as any of their action may be questioned on ethical grounds. These disagreements can be legally hazardous since some of the options for resolving the problems may violate specific legislation. In other cases, the matter may not have legal consequences, but it may evoke a negative response from third people. Ethical issues are difficult to deal with because there are no established norms or precedents. The protection of rights, safety, and well-being of the research participants are primary ethical concerns in clinical research. Besides that, certain principles such as autonomy, non-maleficence, beneficence, and justice are included in the ethical principles. Now that the field has gained so much traction, even minor experimental work must be justified as to correct or incorrect. Autonomy. What is autonomy? When making decisions about the healthcare procedures, the patients must have autonomy of thought, purpose, and action. As a result, there must be no coercion or coaction in the decision making process. To make a completely informed decision, a patient must be aware of all risks and advantages associated with the surgery as well as the possibility of success. The principle of justice. The concept is that the costs and benefits of innovative or experimental treatments should be shared equitably across all social groups. Procedures must follow the spirit of existing laws and be equitable to all individuals present. When analyzing justice, the healthcare practitioner must evaluate four primary factors: equitable allocation of restricted resources, conflicting needs, rights and obligations, and potential legal conflicts. Let's move on to the principle of beneficence. Beneficence requires that the procedure be performed with the intention of benefiting the patient. Demands that healthcare providers improve the maintain their skills and expertise, update their training on a regular basis, assesses the unique circumstances of each patient and strive for net benefit. Last but not least, we're going to talk about the non-maleficence principle. It is an act done to avoid harm or any act which would not harm or violate the trust of others. In the case of physicians, it is their actions that will not harm the patients.
What is mean by social issue? The social issue is a problem that affects a large number of people in a certain society. So, there is an objective and a subjective component to this definition. The objective components is that in order to be labeled a social problem, a condition or action must have negative repercussion for a large number of individuals. Then the subjective component of a social issue is to be deemed a social problem. There must be a belief that a condition or behavior has to be addressed. This element is at the core of the social constructionist approach to social issues. Many different forms, negative situations, and actions occur according to this viewpoint.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is AMIR ASHRAF bin AHMAD AZAM. My matrix number is 23DBT 20F1037. Today, I will explain what is human clinical trial. A clinical trial, also known as a clinical research study, is a protocol to evaluate the effects and efficacy of experimental medical treatments or behavioral interventions on health outcomes. This type of study gathers data from volunteer human subjects and is typically funded by a medical institution, university, or non-profit group, or by pharmaceutical companies and government agencies. Human clinical trial is a type of research study that tests how well new medical approach work in people. These studies test new methods of screening, prevention, diagnosis, or treatment of a disease, also called clinical study. Clinical trials often lead to new treatments that help people to live longer and have less pain or disability. For example, clinical trials can help prevent disease by testing a vaccine, detect or diagnose disease or conditions, for example, by testing a blood sample.
So this is the journal, and the title of the journal is the Ethical Implications of Clinical Trials in Low and Middle Income Countries. And this is the reference of the journal.
Let's talk about the ethical issues in this journal. In 1996, an infamously unethical clinical trial was held in Nigeria during a meningitis outbreak. Pfizer conducted a Trojan trial on children without their parents' informed consent. Parents were unaware of the experiment. This does not follow the principle of autonomy. This is because the parents were not informed of consent about this trial on their children. The other ethical issues are that organizers with financial interests in their sponsoring companies may compromise their professional judgment, neglecting the participants' welfare to increase their own profit. This does not follow the principle of beneficence. This is because the sponsors care more about their profit compared to the patient's health. Besides that, this issue also does not follow the principle of autonomy. This is because the welfare of the participants was neglected. Moving on to the next ethical issue in this journal. The 2000 Declaration of Helsinki update further limited the use of placebos in response to a study about the mother-fetal transmission of HIV in LMIC, which denied active treatment to participants in the control group. This does not follow the principle of non-maleficence. This is because the treatment was still conducted by the health experts, even though the treatment causes harm. Last but not least, this example is from India. In India from 2011 to 2012, there was a vaccine study to prevent rotavirus, or common but potentially life-threatening viral infection in infants and young children. Despite, despite the availability of two highly effective vaccines that prevent serious rotavirus, more than 2,000 children, one third of the study participants, to be specific, received saltwater placebo injection. This exposes the subjects to the risk of potential fatal infection. This does not follow the principle of non-maleficence. This is because the medication was still given intentionally to the children, even though it was not approved and could cause fatal infections.
There are four social issues in this journal. So first, self-interested organizers and pharmaceutical companies pursue these communities to capitalize on lower costs, fewer restrictions, and weaker local standards. So based on the social issue, this does not follow the principle of beneficence because the medication provided by the pharmaceutical companies to the public more precisely does not reach the standard of quality required. By reducing the quality of the product provided, they can lower the cost. Next, people may not know their rights, and a history of exploitation and racism often exists. So, based on the social issue, this does not follow the principle of autonomy. Because people who participate in a clinical trial do not understand their rights and they don't know details about what had happened in human clinical trials before. So, The people who don't know their rights before participating in the human clinical trial can easily be exploited. The next social issue in this journal is clinical trials held in LMIC often result in treatments that the host community cannot afford and often cannot access for decades, even though they assume the burdens. So, based on the social issue, this does not follow the principle of justice. This is because the treatment introduced cannot be afforded by many people in the society. And the last social issue is LMIC, socio-economic disadvantages, which is need for food and compensation, lack of access to healthcare, impede their ability to consent freely. So based on the social issue, this does not follow the principle of beneficence. This is because the health expert failed to provide efficient treatments to patients due to a lack of access to healthcare. So, how human can help to solve the issue?
How humans can help to solve the issues. Firstly, increasing health benefits for the poor. This is for social issue 1 and 3. Poorer countries receive much lower health benefits and richer countries than richest countries. In developing areas, the poor are subjected to a higher risk of contracting disease, and developing areas, the poor are subjected to a higher risk of contracting disease and lower access to quality healthcare. This is solely due to the cost of medicine, treatments, and vaccinations. Through the creation of targeted system strategies, identify who is poor and eligible for lower cost healthcare. Another attribute of this system is directing programs directly towards lesser developed areas. This targeting system has the potential to eliminate poverty at less than 10% the cost of development programs that do not discriminate between poor and rich. Next, investing in education. This is for social issue 2. One of the most important ways to improve health in developing countries is by educating citizens. Educating people enables them to obtain safer jobs, increase health literacy, take preventive healthcare measures, avoid risky health behaviors, and demand better quality health services. This will help them to learn their rights in the human clinical trial. This is especially true for women living in developing countries, from girls entering puberty to pregnant mothers. Next, promoting primary and essential healthcare. This is for social issue 4. A way to improve health in developing countries involves government providing cost-effective health package for everyone. An example of this would be Ethiopia and Malawi, where governments have focused on achieving universal vaccine coverage, developing cleaner water supplies, and creating better sanitation practices. On a broader scale, as part of the Sustainable Development Goals, the UN has agreed to pursue universal healthcare by 2030. The initiative to create universal healthcare includes access to quality essential healthcare service and access to safe, effective, quality, and affordable essential medicines and vaccines for all. By making availability universal, your resources can be directed towards primary level facilities of care that strengthen to the overall treatments that people will be receiving. Next, informed consent to treatment. This is for ethical issue 1. Clinical social work treatment take place within the context of informed consent. This requires that the client be informed of the extent and nature of the service being offered as well as the mutual limits, rights, opportunities, and obligations associated service are mandated or voluntary or delivered in person or via electronic media such as computer, telephone, including landline or smartphone, telehealth media device, television, or radio. In order for the consent to be valid, the client must be informed in a manner that is clear to them, must choose freely and without undue influence, and must have the capacity to make an informed choice.
Next is solution of ethical issue number 2, which is targeted system tactics. So, health benefits are substantially lower in poorer countries than in wealthier countries. The cost of drugs, treatments, and vaccination is the sole reason for this. Targeted system tactics are used to identify who is impoverished and qualified for lower cost healthcare. Another features of this method is that it directs programs to underdeveloped areas. This strategy has the ability to eradicate poverty for less than 10% of the cost of development programs that do not discriminate between rich and poor. And the solution of ethical issue number 3 and 4 is scale and sustain better patient access. So from this solution, while organizations can use a stepwise framework to improve patient access, the work to better connect patients with care is ongoing. Health system must prepare to scale and sustain access by adapting to current events, such as navigating COVID-19 with a more virtual, touchless experience and ongoing community communication to understand patients' need and preference.
Now we're moving to the conclusion. Clinical research has the potential to exploit patient volunteers by putting some people in danger for the benefit of others. The goal of ethical guidelines is to protect participants while still maintaining scientific integrity. When assessing the virtues and problems of medical operations, doctors and researchers should resort the four main principles of healthcare ethics. To be called ethical, a medical practice should adhere to all four of these principles, which are autonomy, justice, beneficence, and non-maleficence. Bioethics in healthcare promotes medical practice awareness and knowledge among healthcare workers. Medical practitioners are capable of tagging along with the ethical codes when practicing, especially when dealing with challenges by focusing on the ethical components of bioethics. Because ethical tribulations are linked to issues in medical care, bioethics can help our country's healthcare system improve dramatically. The purpose of clinical trial is to determine if a new treatment or test or a potential drug medical device would work in a safe way to humans. These are the references we have used for our presentation. Thank you, and that's all from us. Hope you enjoy our video.